who are trying comedy for the first time, and you can do this if you're in the audience. You want to have a go at comedy, then just get in touch, drop us an email or stuff, and we'll put you on, and you can have a go yourself. Because everyone has to do their first gig sometime. Sorry, how many nipples will be in there? I can't leave that. What the fuck? How many nipples will be in there?
No, me and my nipples will be in there. There's a whole comedy act right there.
In your nipples?
Yeah.
What's wrong with your nipples? I mean, it's in my top 5 best heckles I've ever received. If you can do it by telling, not showing, I guess that's better for all of us. Oh well, yeah, I mean, fuck it. We are pretty liberal here. It looks like a fucking strip club, so why not? Because, ladies and gentlemen, everyone has to do their first gig sometime. And ladies and gentlemen, that time is now. Your next act is doing his first ever gig, and if anyone behaves like a cunt, I will come down on you like a ton of bricks.
So will I!
He is going to be doing this, and you are going to love him. Are you ready to see your next act tonight? Go wild, go crazy, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Vinnicombe!
I'm the new guy. You know, I was hungry before break started, but old James's talk of fisting actually put me right up. But I thought I'll start it off with a gag. So here's a joke that I heard as a kid. Hopefully none of you have heard it before.
Microphone.
2 Irishmen walk into a bar. And the first Irish, he says to the barman, he says, I'll have a whiskey and we'll have a Guinness for Donkey here. So the barman's thinking to himself, why is he calling this guy Donkey? So he has to ask. So he says to the guy, he says, why does he call you Donkey? And the guy says, I don't know. He always calls me that. I thought this was going to be more daunting than it is, but there's quite a lot of you in the room, and whilst I know there are, I can't see any of you. The lights are bright. But I've been living in Folkestone actually myself for about 1.5 years, and I've noticed that you got quite a lot of a few things here. You've got a lot of scaffolding, one thing I've noticed. Scaffolding to an Irishman is not quite the same as it is to an Englishman. As I'm sure you can imagine, the Irish are not quite so up to date with their health and safety. So walking underneath scaffolding in Ireland is, you got to be quite careful, So I find myself here now, even though I know that it's not quite as dangerous as it is in Ireland. Kind of sort of just getting a good look at it, before I get too close to it, because things can fall at an angle also, If I've got family members with me, I'll be like, hold on, let's clock this first. I've just been wandering underneath scaffolding, There are kickboards. I think the Irish invented those, or they were brought into fashion by the, women who lost people to scaffolding. And so eventually you sort of, make your way around it. You look like a mental case to people in England because they don't usually do it, so you just sort of, make your way around it, and then you get to the other side, and obviously there you are, you're away. Another thing that you've got a lot of here in Folkestone are magpies. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of the whole 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy thing. This is basically an Irish construct, and I mean, statistically, are you more likely to see 1 or 2 magpies? 2? And look, we came up with it. Alright? I would say you're more likely to see 1, statistically. Trust the Irish to come up with something that statistically you're going to have worse luck than you are going to have good. Also, if you have good eyesight, I can spot one of those fuckers from about a mile, easily. So I'll spot that magpie and I'll just be thinking, oh, come on, Jesus Christ. And I'm not a particularly superstitious person. I'm not particularly superstitious, but one thing I will say is that magpies tend to upset me. Even though I know it's silly, but they do. I see one and I'm like, where are you fucking mates? Come on, you're that guy, just don't be that guy. Yeah, so as I say, I feel like Folkestone's made up of like two main groups now. There's a lot of new people coming to Folkestone. So you'll have like your commuters, and you have also got your pensioners. You know, the pensioners were here first, but since property prices started going up in London, you know, you've got a lot more commuters now, what with the fast train and everything. You know, I mean, I used to be a commuter myself, and I had a few bad experiences. I'd say one of the most recent, and one of the turning points where I decided that I was going to move somewhere else, and maybe work in a different job and sort of like, you know, try out other things, was, you know, I don't know if any of you know the Waterloo in City? Yeah, it can get quite busy on there. And there was one day I was on there, I was coming home from work, and so you know, I thought I'd done quite well. I was at the front of the queue of people waiting to get on this train, and I managed to get on. And so I ended up sort of like pushed right up against the side of the train. My head was sort of twisted over like this. It was not a comfortable experience at all, you know. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, we've all been there. You know, this is a normal occurrence. But, you know, there was a guy who's standing right in front of me, and his briefcase is positioned in such a way that every time this train rocks, he's hitting me right in the bollocks with his briefcase, and I cannot move. I have tried everything I can to move into some form of another position, and it's just not happening. So for 5 minutes, this guy's briefcase is just systematically hitting me in the bollocks. I'm trying not to make eye contact. You know, he has no idea this is happening. No idea this is happening. And I got off that train, and I thought I feel violated. And aroused, you know. I wasn't ready for the feelings, and I think that combination of things, it upset me. It upset me, and I thought to myself, I have to change this. I have to sort this out. So I moved to Folkestone. I didn't even intend that to be a punchline, you know that? It's going to go easy on you. But yeah, one of the things I've noticed about Folkestone actually, and since I've moved here, thinking, you know, the hustle and bustle, there are obviously your pluses and your minuses. And the dating scene here is diabolical. I mean, I come from a place where if you're on Tinder for 10 minutes, you got a date, you know. Round here, you have to be on 5 different dating sites. And some of these dating sites are hilarious. Like, the criteria that you'll see. So, for instance, one of them, Plenty of Fish. We've all heard of it. Yeah, there are girls here looking at their boyfriends like this, you know. Oh, you know Plenty of Fish. And I'm sure there's plenty of people here that have met on dating sites. But one of them, the criteria, I consider myself to be a problem solver at the best of times. You know, I try. And one of the criteria there is have kids, right? And so in a lot of cases, it says yes. And it also has criteria slightly further down saying want kids. You know, no. So I'm thinking eBay. You know, 2 things together. I mean, you know, problem solver. But I mean, one of the things I've noticed as well is like recently in time, you know, dating in the fashion industry, or one of the things that it's now fashionable to do, what with dating, you know, I'm sure you've all heard of manscaping. All heard of manscaping, yeah? Has anyone in this room ever caught their man manscaping?
Yes.
You have, right.
I bet that's Sonia.
Right. Have you ever seen a look of dedication, or a look of that much dedication on a man's face? When he's got a razor that far from his bollocks. You will never see it. And a lot of women will get upset about that. So we should see dedication like this in other situations. You know, why does he look so, you know, he's concentrating. So that's one thing I noticed about it. But another thing, actually, moving on from that, actually, is this from a sort of a, you know, gender perspective, is this gender fluid, you know, movement. And I always thought to myself, whenever I hear this gender fluid thing, and I'm quite understanding, if a man feels like he's in a woman's body, hey, go with it, you know, do whatever you have to do. Vice versa, obviously, it's, you know, just the same thing. But when people start saying I identify as a dog or a cat, I feel like perhaps, hey, look, if they do, you know, fine, whatever. But I feel a lot of it is attention seeking. Now, some people do actually prefer to identify as inanimate objects. I mean, I saw a documentary once about somebody who identifies as a lamp. Hey, and there was a picture of him standing in his living room with a lampshade on his head. And this is what he does all day long, every day. This is what he loves to do. You know, all power to him. And I thought to myself, you know, whilst I had a bit of a problem with it, I thought, if you can't beat him, join him. You know? So I've decided to identify as tax exempt. Folkestone, this has been my first gig. You've been fantastic.
First gig, my